All right, guys. Dr. Brian Mann, University of Miami. In my advanced strength and conditioning methods class the other day, we were talking about this study, the effects of plyometric training on running performance and vertical jumping in prepubertal boys. Uh, while I don't focus on LTAD stuff and early development, this study brought up something that we took a little detour on within the study that I think it would be extremely important and beneficial for those of you to hear that if you aren't familiar with this type of thing. And I mean, this to call it plyometric training is a little bit suspect, but you know that it is what it is. You know, it was definitely jump training. Yeah, I didn't see plyometrics within the methodology, but it is what it is. Some would say it's semantics, and I think sometimes I need to face facts that what is truly the plyometric is shock method, and what most people call plyometric is jump training. But that's neither here nor there. That's something that I probably need to just accept rather than get frustrated about. So the purpose of the study was to investigate the effect of plyometric training on running velocity and squat jump performance in prepubescent boys. Okay, so they had 15 boys. They followed a 10-week plyometric program on top of their typical uh, physical education program. So phys ed only, phys ed with a little bit of plyo. Let's look at what happened, what they did. So let's look at the differences between the groups, if there were those anthropometrically. We see that everybody was phase one sexual maturation, so that is pre-pubertal. Their age, they're about 11 years old, 10.9, 11.1. Man, they both round down, and we see a small standard deviation because it was a one class. The height, they're about the same height, they're about the same weight. Now we look at the total sum of jumps per training session. I think this is important, and it's important because this is, I wouldn't say that this is absolute the minimal effective dose. I don't know what the minimum effective dose would be, especially for this population. But whenever we know that the upper limit, according to the NSCA, for true plyometric or shock method, it would be 150 contacts per session, they reach nowhere near that. And so that's pretty cool. Why is it pretty cool? Well, let's get to the results. They didn't do a whole lot, but if we look here, we're going to see the outcomes. Now, pre-training, okay, if we look at the 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and 0 to 30, these are the different splits. So they were in a 30-meter split, and they had every 10 meters so that we could look at, and that's how they broke it down, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and then the entire sprint. Because adaptations could be phase specific. And that's one thing that I know that I missed out on earlier on in my career is that I'm like, oh, okay, well, if your squat goes up, then your sprint's going to go up. Well, that's true, but where does the change occur? Well, as I just used that squat example, we know that that first 10 meters, well, what do you have to do in that first 10 meters? What do you have to do at the start? All right. You have no momentum. So you have to overcome the inertia of your own body weight. So you have to do that to get going, right? Uh, how much velocity is there to overcome? Well, there's no velocity. It's all force, right, for that first step. So that first 10 meters is usually uh, related back to changes in absolute relative strength. Excuse me. Because what if you increase 30 pounds on your squat and 30 pounds in your body weight? Well, those two are going to cancel out, obviously. And it's probably going to be more towards you're actually probably going to see a decrease in strength to mass ratio as a result instead of a maintain, but whatever. Uh, so that improvement in relative strength. So if your squat stayed the same and you lost 20 pounds, well, you're going to get a lot better at the start of your sprint. Quite frankly, you're probably going to get better at the later on too because of the momentum that'll be created in that first day. That doesn't matter. That's not the point. Now, the 10 to 20 specifically and the 20 to 30, these are often seen as acceleration phase. Now, again, these are prepubertal boys. So what it makes it the acceleration phase, where is maximal velocity achieved, that might be different. I bring this up because if we look at the heights, right, 1.56 meters So I mean, they're not, Oompa Loompas by any means, but they're not, your 6'6", 6'7", or 6'2" people doing sprints. They're going to have some differences. Um, and the 11-year-olds, at least 11-year-olds in my neighborhood, I mean, they're shorter than me. It's not like they're my 5-year-old or my 2-year-old who, interestingly enough, just a side note, the other day I took the kids with me and we went to the zoo and we did a couple other things. It was a daddy day, right? And I'm tired. I look down at, I've got 12,000 steps on my Fitbit. Well, I don't have a Fitbit. I've got a Samsung Galaxy on my smartwatch. That's what I should have said. And then I happen to notice that my 2-year-old is just so stinking cranky and tired. Well, what happened is, whenever we were walking to take the trash out to the dumpster from our townhouse, I'm like, well, you know what? She's taking like 2 and 3 steps to my 1, so she's really at like, I don't know. If I'm at 12,000, she's at like 36,000 steps. No wonder she's so stinking tired. So that could also change these phases. And I bring that up because of the way that they refer to things. Now, pre-training. Back to the point here. Here's the control is the group that is the control group, and jump is the group that obviously did the jump training. So PE only, there's jump training. These are both pre. And we see that there is no statistical difference between the two. Now, this group does happen to be faster, but there's not a statistical difference between the groups at these points. How? Dude, I don't know, man. I'm going to be honest with you. I have no clue because those are some pretty big gaps there. But it wasn't reported as that. But that actually makes this all the more interesting. Typically, in a study like this, and maybe, honestly, now that I think about the year, was this 2003, 2006? Yeah, they didn't start doing ANCOVAs yet. So what we might have actually seen is that this jump group was actually statistically faster to start with. And that would make it super cool if they redid the statistics on this. And why would that make it super cool? Because typically what happens is if two groups start out and one group is stronger, they're not going to see as big of an increase, right, in their improvements in strength, or if it's jumping, they're not going to see a big increase in jumping, and if it's sprinting, they're not going to see a big of decrease in the times. But whenever we look at the post training, we see that pre to post and the control, man, they're all about the same. In fact, they're a little bit slower. But we look at the jump pre to post. Well, everything is significantly different within now. So what does that mean? It means that it is significantly different between the pre and the post for the jump. But now they're significantly different between the groups. Okay? Now, and where does that significant difference, where's the big significant difference thing happen? Dude, right here. In these two phases, the 10 to 20 and 20 to 30. And also 0 to 30. But it's as a result of the 10 to 20 and 20 to 30 that actually pulls this up. Now, why am I bringing this up? Why are we talking about it in this manner? Well, look, where were the changes? The changes that were the biggest did not occur in the force end of the spectrum whenever you're overcoming inertia. Okay? And let's look here for these correlations, because this will give us a little bit better. Oh, and let's look here. Hey, guess what? If you do jump training, you get better at jumping. Okay. All right, Einstein, thanks for that. But, I mean, you've got to obviously statistically show this, so that, yeah, the group that did jump training, they got better at jumping. They jumped higher. And this may have been a squat jump. So the squat jump is actually the elimination of the stretch shortening cycle. So they go down and pause and then jump up. Actually, I'm getting confused now between this and another 4 other studies that we went over in class. So if they referred to a counter movement jump as a squat jump, I apologize for somebody who's more familiar with the study. But if we look here at the correlations, we see that the biggest correlations are right here, the 10 to 20 and the 20 to 30. right? Why? Well, again, it's got to be specificity. Now, what we're going to look at, and as I mentioned, relative strength is related to the initial 10 meters, so improvements of the force into the spectrum would show greater improvements there. Unloaded training showed the greatest improvement at the velocity into the spectrum. How do I know that? Well, let's look here at this study from Kaneko et al. In 1983. What he did was they actually, this is before we go any further, and somebody's like, wait, this looks like a force velocity profile with power overlaid. How come those are curvilinear, not straight line? Well, this is a single joint. He took it from single joint, and that's okay. Because the difference between the single and the multiple joint is that the multiple joint seem to, whenever they stack everything up, it's a linear relationship as opposed to curvilinear. Now, as we explain this, and I think I might have already gone over this study before, so if you want to go into great depth, check elsewhere on the channel, and if I didn't, I need to go slap myself and do it, because this is one of my favorite studies for explaining differences in adaptations of training. Now, why is that? Well, they do the force, velocity, and the power all on the same chart. And also, I really like it because it's old. It's almost as old as I am. Yeah. I look creaky like this too. You see the gray and the beard on each side. But whatever. Velocity is on the y-axis, force is on the x-axis, power is on the secondary y-axis. The concave curves are force to velocity. The convex are power and force. So that tells us where does power lie in terms of force and how much power has changed, and we see the relationship with velocity. But when we do training at this G100, G100 means group 100. They trained only at 100% of their 1RM. So we see that they've got a very small improvement in velocity, as noted right here, a large improvement in force. Power, what happens? It goes up. It goes up, but it shifts to the right. Now, that's all well and good if you've got a non-rate limited activity. Like squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing, something that is not a rate limit activity, like a weightlifting, a strength training movement. However, in rate limited activities like in sport, oftentimes you aren't going to be accessing that power. You would need to follow it up later on with more of the 30% work to access that force, because now you're bringing up the velocity and spec. Well, we could talk about that in a periodization and planning off of the force velocity the curve later on. Now, if we look at 60%, when all the training was done at 60%, we see power goes up, and it goes up congruent with, or maybe even a little bit more than 100. Let's look at the velocity into the spectrum. It's decent. We look at the force into the spectrum. It looks decent. And those are roughly symmetrical. Yeah, I kind of call 60% the Goldilocks load, because you have equal improvements in force and velocity. And that's coming back from training or coming back from anything. Even with beginners. Beginners, I love 60% because of that. You see, we'll start training there at that 60%, multiple repetitions, maximal intent every time after they get good technique. And they get faster, they get stronger, they get, it's great, right? Then the 30%. Now the 30% is we can just visually see that appears to be the highest power output. We notice that it doesn't really shift too far out to the right. And if we look at the force, there's a small, modest improvement, but a larger improvement on the velocity into the spectrum. Well, remember that, we didn't discuss this, but you might have learned already that power is force times velocity. So we've got to make sure that we are taking this into account, that power is a fluff metric. I mean, it's not pure. What do I mean by fluff? It's just that it's calculated to see where it occurs. So the changes in force and velocity are really where you can manipulate the changes at. Then we look at the unloaded. Well, the unloaded, we see like there's virtually no change in force. There's a large change in velocity, but small change in power. Well, why is that? Well, dude, it's a product. You go back to rules of multiplication. Anything times 0 is 0. Well, that's not 0, but it's pretty close. So you're going to get next to nothing as an improvement in power as a result of that. So these guys did training unloaded, okay, with their jump training, and they saw adaptations in the acceleration phase, what I would call the acceleration phase. I can't remember what they actually called it, uh, which is whenever you're accelerating your inertia. So there is a little resistance and it's a high velocity movement. So, of course, we would have seen the said principle working there. These results indicate that plyometric exercises or jump training can improve squat jump and running velocity in prepubertal boys. More specifically, the program selectively influenced the maximum velocity phase, but not the acceleration phase. Either way, remember, say, hey, man, they're going to say it a little differently than I do. That's okay. People can, multiple people can have different opinions and agree on way more than they disagree upon. And I think that probably happens with most of us in strength and conditioning. That, hey, we'll agree on 95%, but we'll have some knockdown, drag out, tooth and nail, hair pulling, eye scratching, gouging, trying to rip an ear off, bite it like you're Mike Tyson, fight over that 5%, which I think is ridiculous. But again, I address this a little bit differently than them, but I think that we've got the same sort of conclusion. Now, if you like this type of information, and you're wanting to get more of it, come and join us at the U. Whatever your level, we got you. Okay? If you're undergraduate, you want to go into strength and conditioning, pre-med, pre-physical therapy, pre-clinical exercise physiology, we got you. I didn't put the website up here, but it's simply edu.miami.edu, or School of Education. So edu.miami.edu take you right to our page. For the School of Education, just go over into the kinesiology and sports sciences, and you'll be able to find our program there from the undergraduate. Graduate, we've got it in that applied physiology, which strength and conditioning is one of the tracks where you'll have myself, Brian Biagioli, etc. And let me just take a second to talk about the faculty for both of these programs. Guys, I want to just take a second to brag, man. We are loaded, man, loaded. Arlette Perry, Kevin Jacobs, Wes Smith, who's one of the best teachers, instructors that I've been around. He does amazing at getting his point across. If I didn't just mention Kevin Jacobs, sorry, I just got a text from the wife there. Then Joe Signorelli. I mean, this dude's a legend, right? Absolute legend. Motaz El-Tuki, a tremendous biomechanist. Guys, we have got like a tremendous faculty here for you to learn from undergraduate and graduate. But continuing education, like, dude, Dr. Mann, that sounds great, but I've got my master's degree already. I've got my undergraduate. And you know what? The U is dang expensive because it's private. And you're right about that. Because of that, I went ahead and I tried to work with the U, and we're doing some continuing education stuff, right? Right now, already out, there'll be another one running in the summer, is a 8-week continuing education course that's set for the beginner. Soon, we're working on it. We're getting it done. I've got the stuff recorded, and we're going to keep expanding it, but a bunch of one-off topics. Right? It's like, hey, I want to know just about APRE. I want to know just about the shoulder. I want to know about the posterior chain. I want to know about statistics and strength and conditioning. There's going to be a bunch of different ones of these. Plyometrics, dude. If you like this lecture, I got I think it's like 130 slides, something like that. It's a couple hours of lecture with a quiz at the end, and all of them are for continuing education units. Those will be up soon. They're not up already, but you can get from elevate.miami.edu. Guys, this is, I hope that you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed giving it. And if you have any questions, comments, complaints, more info, well, you can hit me in the comment section here on YouTube. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to load this up to Instagram too. So you could hit it right there in the comments, like, follow, share, tell your neighbor, tell your dog, tell your neighbor's dog. And guys, just really briefly, before I sign off, as I say, I'm signing off, I just wanted to point this out that sometimes people are like, hey, Dr. Mann, what can I do to help you? Well, guys, here's the deal that I've set it up here with my department chair that this will fund my research. So you want to help me? Come take our courses. All right? That's it.